This program offers 14 rules for navigating the river called life. Each lesson builds upon the other. So if you have not yet had a chance to view our previous lessons, we strongly recommend that you take a moment to do so before viewing this lesson. You'll find links to all of our lessons on our website, ariverworthriding.wordpress.com. And remember, as always, to take one rule at a time, give it 1 week's strict attention, and leave everything else to its ordinary chance. Taken together, these rules make for a worthwhile ride. As before, we'll begin with a story. Each evening, a father would bring his daughter down to the water's edge and show her the river's secrets. As they sat quietly one evening, a mother wolf appeared on the bank and began drinking with her pups. "Did you know that inside each person lives 2 wolf packs?" asked the father. She was a clever daughter who knew that she was much too small to contain even 1 wolf, so she asked her father to explain. "The first wolf pack has 6 siblings," he said. "They are anger, envy, greed, resentment, revenge, and lies. The other wolf pack also has 6 siblings. They are fairness, joy, love, empathy, forgiveness, and truth. Every day, both of these wolf packs struggle and fight to keep their hold on your life." "Which wolf pack wins?" the daughter asked with wide eyes. The father laughed. "The pack you feed the most." So what feeds the wolf packs inside of your mind? Your focus and your attention. I knew a girl who rode life's rapids. She was good at riding the rapids. Whenever she finished one rapid, she started preparing for the next. She only felt safe preparing for rapids, and so she focused all of her attention on surviving life's rapids. Eventually, her life became one long rapid, and she missed the rest of the river entirely. The power of focus says that if you only look for rapids, you will not see the calm. In other words, the more you concentrate on rapids, the more your brain will actually devote its resources to spotting rapids, until eventually, rapids dominate your every thought and begin to affect your behavior. Don't believe me? Well, try attending a class sometime, and while the teacher is explaining your assignment to you, force yourself to continually think, "I don't get this, I don't get this, I don't get this," or "It's just too hard, it's too hard." Focus all of your attention on the fact that you don't understand what the teacher is saying, and I'll bet you the price of my book that you won't understand what the teacher is saying. The focus of your attention will have affected your experience of the class. Whenever I have students who complain that they can't understand something, I invariably find the same thought process within their minds. They focus all of their attention on what they don't understand, and the more they concentrate on what they don't understand, the less room they have in their minds to understand anything. When people focus on what limits them, then sure enough, they're limited. Consider how you begin to behave whenever you focus on what you hate. Take your job, for example. If you were to focus all of your attention on how much you hated your job, then how would you begin to behave at your job? If you're like most people, you would start to behave with indifference. You would start doing the minimal amount of work required to keep from being fired. You would cut out of work every chance you got. Why? Because the focus of your thoughts would affect your emotions, and in turn your emotions would affect your behavior. You become, Emerson warned, what you think about most of the time. Let me demonstrate the power that focus has over your emotions. I want you to simply think of someone who makes you angry. Even better, think of someone who makes you furious. Close your eyes, take your time, and really picture that person in your mind. Remind yourself what that person did to you. Replay any unfair statements in your mind. See their face watching you. Hear the thoughtlessness in their voice. Spend a full minute focusing every ounce of your attention on how much they infuriated you. As you think of them, can you start to feel yourself getting angry? So now take a deep breath and think of someone who loves you unconditionally. Again, take your time and really picture the way that person looks at you. Listen to any encouraging words. Imagine that person giving you a hug, the touch of their hand as they reach out to comfort you. Keeping your eyes closed, spend some time basking in their unconditional support. Can you feel yourself starting to feel better? Okay, go ahead and open your eyes. The more you focused on the person's love, the better you began to feel, didn't you? So the question ends up simple. Which would you rather have in your life, anger or love? The thoughts and images that you choose to focus upon will create the emotions that fill your life. And since you can control where you focus your thoughts, you can also control where your emotions take you. In 1905, William James wrote, "The greatest revolution of my generation is the discovery that individuals, by changing their inner attitudes of mind, can change the outer aspects of their lives." What does that mean? It means that you are not the victim of your heart's whim unless you allow yourself to be victimized by those whims. You can focus your thoughts, and by focusing your thoughts, you can learn how to use your thoughts to interpret your emotions. Once you understand your emotions, you can finally use them as they were intended to be used, as measuring sticks for steering clear of the rapids in life. But only after you learn to consciously focus your thoughts will you be able to take advantage of that power. To understand the power of focus, think about your average 100-watt light bulb. What can you do with a typical light bulb? Light your house, give a slideshow, read in bed, party all night? Now think about what happens to light after it's been focused. Think about what happens to diffuse light when it's been focused and concentrated onto one tiny spot. Focused light becomes a laser, and lasers can cut through metal, save eyesight, and operate on the human heart. We suddenly have all that extra power just because we've concentrated and focused simple light. A light bulb is diffused energy. A laser is that same energy after it has been focused. Our minds have that same power to focus, but in most of us, our thoughts are jumping around like monkeys from tree to tree. The average undeveloped human attention span is about 20 seconds. Unless we consciously practice extending our attention span, we will always lack focus, and we will never be able to take advantage of our laser thinking. We'll simply become the victims of our own diffused and often negative thoughts. So how powerful is focus? The Buddhist path to enlightenment is all about learning to focus. Geniuses are usually noted for their extraordinary ability to focus. And have you ever considered how focus affects our economy? Growing up, I often heard a popular theory claiming that war stimulates the economy. I wish to add a corollary to that theory. I believe that focus, not war, stimulates the economy. War merely gives us a common goal upon which our nation can focus. Whenever national issues are about life or death, people tend to stop arguing over little differences and start focusing upon only one thing: survival. And whenever we as a nation pull together, focusing all of our attention on common and agreed upon goals, we manage to pour amazing amounts of energy into achieving those goals. John F. Kennedy turned the arms race with the Soviet Union into a race to the moon, causing this country to focus vast amounts of its resources toward putting an American on the lunar surface within a decade. We met his challenge, and we did it sooner. Focus brings us together, and focus pulls us apart. Our focus is constantly being diffused by the circumstances of the moment. If you watch the television news, then you are regularly inundated with stories about what's wrong with the world and which celebrity is getting arrested for what. The news talks of little else. But if all you do is focus on what's wrong with the world, then the world will seem full of wrongs. You need to remember that television makes its money and keeps its viewers by showing every crime, every trial, every fad, every diet, every untested theory, every tragedy, every human indignity, every human foible, every murder, and every accident, regardless of whether we really need the information or not. And when we let the news control the focus of our thoughts, we let the news control our reactions to the world and to our lives. Considering all the terrible things that are reported to us daily, is it any wonder that we often feel hopeless and terrified by life? Yes, we need to stay informed, but we also need to stay balanced. And when we really look at the world, the good people by far outnumber the bad. We just don't always notice the good that people do every day because we depend upon the evening news to report it. Maybe we need to focus a bit less on what's wrong with the world and a bit more on what's right. If we did change our focus, we might start to notice and reward the people who are actually doing what's right. When we focus our attention on what is different between the races, the classes, the religions, the sexes, and the nations, we tend to bring out and notice those differences. People will always be fighting about their differences. But I bet that if we focused on what people have in common, we would start to notice how much we all have in common. The public broadcasting station ran a special on the aftermath of September 11. In the special, a teacher who worked in a school next to the Twin Towers asked all of her students to write out 2 lists. One list was to be of all the people that had harmed them that day. The other list was to be of all the people that had helped them. She said, I knew that the list of the people who had helped them would be bigger than the list of the people who had harmed them. And I wanted them to focus on what was good in people so that they wouldn't be so afraid. Our focus often makes us afraid. When we learn to control our focus, we learn to control our fears. And eventually, we even learn to control our reactions to our fears. So how can you use the power of focus to build a worthwhile journey? You'll need to incorporate 5 exercises into your weekly practice. That's right, it's homework time. The 5 exercises are imagining the future you want so that you can actually focus on it, learning to notice your distractions and manage them, understand how you process sensory data, learning to exercise your attention span daily, and practicing controlling your negative emotions and actually stimulating your more positive emotions. We'll take each of the exercises in order, beginning with imagining the future you want. Until you have a clear future to focus your attention upon, you won't have the power to move towards that future, and you'll waste a lot of energy floundering and stagnating. Most of my students can talk for hours about what they don't want. They want less fighting, less worry, less stress, less anger, less frustration, less crime, and less violence. They can paint vivid pictures and examples of everything that they don't want. But when I ask them to explain what they do want, they suddenly have vague, unclear answers. They want a job, but they don't know where. They want a happy life, but they haven't discovered what makes them happy. They want good relationships, but they can't explain what creates a good relationship. They want a business, but they can't define profit. They want customers, but they don't know what makes them valuable to customers. They want to be successful, but they haven't a clue as to what their talents are. Well, until people decide what they want from life, they can't use their laser thinking to move towards what they want. And until people discover what they enjoy contributing to the river, they can't steer themselves toward opportunities for compensation. So if you want more from life than what you don't want, then first and foremost, you must discover what you do want. You must clearly and precisely design an image of the life that you were born to live. And once you have that image in your mind, you must pay attention to it and remember to steer by it as you make course changes throughout your day. We will be covering the actual process and steps for designing that worthwhile life in our next lesson, The Power of Strategy. So for this week, just start focusing on what your ideal life might look like 5 years from now. Try to imagine how you spend your time. Imagine whom you would be sharing your life with. Try to imagine one perfect day in detail. All right, let's look at the second exercise to practice this week. Learn to notice your distractions. How often do you let other people steal your focus? How often do you let your own worries steal your focus? If you want to practice laser thinking, you need to notice when and what causes you to become distracted. What typically causes people to lose focus? Worry, gossip, defensiveness, addictions, unexpected or overwhelming emotions, and spending time with people who are experiencing any of the above. If you can pinpoint the cause of your distractions, then you can begin to eliminate those causes from your attention. So ask yourself, what habitually triggers your emotions, your defensiveness, your addictions, your worrying, your complaining, or your gossiping? What typically causes you to take your eyes off your chosen course and put them onto things that you can't control and therefore in the end don't matter? The next time you find yourself engaged in any self-defeating behavior, simply notice what you're doing. If you can, pull your attention away and ask yourself what caused you to do it. Just sit silently and reflectively and wait for an answer. The insight and wisdom that pops into your head might surprise you, but you won't even catch a glimpse of that wisdom if you don't quiet down long enough to pay attention. We will be developing tools for managing the distractions you uncover this week in the next few lessons. But for this week, simply start to notice the moments and the people who trigger your most frustrating distractions. All right, let's take a look at the third exercise you ought to consider this week: understanding how you process sensory data. People process the sensory data received by their brains in different ways. How you process the sensory data in your brain has a lot to do with how and when you focus best. In order to uncover how you process sensory data, you will need to know whether you are primarily audio, visual, or kinetic. You will find a 3-minute test on page 38 of our companion book, A River Worth Writing, which will help you make that determination. In the meantime, let's discuss how audio, visual, and kinetic learning styles differ. The primary sense for an audio individual is their hearing. Basically, this means they cannot ignore sounds. Side discussions and repetitive noises will be very distracting for them. Earplugs, libraries, closed doors, and white noises are their best defenses. By white noise, I mean any continuous sound that keeps their overly sensitive ears busy without distracting them. Examples might be television with the volume at a faint mumble, trickling water of a fountain, air conditioners hum, low chanting. Even their own voice drowning out other noises can help them control their focus. As far as learning styles, audio people do learn very easily with verbal directions and class lectures, but only if the noise around them is not distracting. The primary sense for a visual person is, of course, sight, meaning any movement that is within their line of sight will distract them. One of my best friends is a visual person, and I can be standing right in front of him talking to him, and if a bird flies out of the corner of his eyes, he'll suddenly be distracted by it. The best solution is to control what enters their line of sight. If you're trying to keep their attention, make sure you're right in front of them, they're looking at you, you have eye contact, and you don't have a lot of other movement around them. You want to make sure that their doors are closed, they're facing away from open windows. You don't have a lot of traffic moving in front of them. By controlling what comes into their line of sight, a visual person can control their focus. As far as learning styles are concerned, you need to think about written directions, diagrams, charts, and pictures. My same friend, you could tell him it 10 times, but he would often not get it until you could write it out for him, draw the picture for him, and suddenly he'd have the aha moment. And finally, the primary sense for a kinetic individual is their touch and their smell. The things that distract them are intrusions or changes in their personal space. They're very aware of the area immediately surrounding them. They're distracted by changes in temperature, people brushing up against them, people being just right behind them, any change in their personal space. Solution is controlling the movement and changes in their personal space, meaning they should be up against a wall, sitting in a corner. They should not be surrounded by people because the movements of those people will distract them. This is also the kind of person that needs to invest in comfortable desk chairs because if they aren't comfortable, that will distract them. Controlling airflow and temperature is also critical. Some solutions can also be aromatherapy because by giving their nose something good to smell, it will keep them from noticing other Smells. As far as learning style, this person needs to be hand-on. They need one-on-one instruction. This person in a lecture will be more aware of the person sitting next to them than the teacher in the front of the room speaking to them. Any movement next to them will distract them. So if you're trying to teach someone who's kinetic, you need to be one-on-one. And also they learn by doing. I like to think that sometimes their memories are actually in their hands. They don't get it until they physically do it a number of times, and then it comes naturally to them. You'll find more about this topic in our companion book. In the meantime, let's move on to exercising your attention span daily. I've already mentioned that human beings have an average attention span of about 20 seconds. But you can learn to expand your ability to focus. How? By practicing meditation, silence, non-judgment, discipline, and listening. Let's look at each one in order. In his book, 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, Dr. Deepak Chopra explains meditation as going into the gaps between our thoughts, becoming a silent witness to those gaps, and allowing those gaps to deepen and expand until we realize that we exist independently from our thoughts. He says that our true nature does not lie within our thoughts, but within the gaps between our thoughts, and that it is within those gaps that we can sometimes glimpse the depth of our divine nature. Now, most meditation experts suggest that you find someone to teach you meditation, and who am I to disagree? But I have had some success just sitting quietly and noticing the gaps between my thoughts and watching those gaps expand. This form of meditation often reminds me of the biblical passage, "Be still and know that I am God." You'll find as many meditation techniques as you will find people who meditate. Here is a technique that a Buddhist friend of mine taught me. He calls it Zen 101. It's one of my favorites because it's deceptively simple. You sit comfortably for 10 minutes and simply count your breaths. You don't worry about how long or short your breaths are, you simply count them. Whenever you reach 11, you go back to number 1 and you begin the count again. At first, you'll find that one of two things will tend to happen. You will either pass 11 without even realizing it, or you will lose track of your count somewhere between 1 and 11. To be successful, this technique requires that you focus on accomplishing 2 tasks at once, counting each individual breath while not losing track of your count. This will improve your focus. Practice it 10 minutes every day and watch your focus grow. Other meditation techniques involve focusing on a mantra, a sound, your breathing, a flower, a light, or an image. Whatever techniques you try, the process is essentially the same. Simply quiet your conscious thoughts so that you can reconnect with that part of yourself that is beyond thought and beyond words. Why? To remind yourself that you are more than your thoughts. You are in fact the thinker of your thoughts. Practicing silence is another form of meditation that improves focus. By practicing silence, I mean that you should actively practice focusing on and getting comfortable with silence. I know many people who can't stand being silent for more than a few minutes. Silence makes them so uncomfortable that they talk endlessly without hearing what they say. They repeat themselves and don't even notice. The words in their mind have become habits without meaning because they never let themselves be silent. You need to develop the habit of silence so that you can actually tell the difference between words and insight. You should try to get comfortable with silence. Practice silence. Focus on silence. Find a place to sit and watch the world go by, to just watch and observe. Don't think about anything for an hour. Don't say anything for an afternoon. If you can, don't say anything for a day and just see how peaceful and focused you begin to feel. Okay, how about practicing non-judgment? By practicing non-judgment, I mean that you should actually resist the urge to constantly categorize everything under the sun. Judge not lest you be judged is a very practical piece of advice. When you place everything into categories and judge them as either good or bad, you create turbulence in your inner dialogue and a need in yourself to prove things right or wrong. That turbulence stills your ability to focus. When you practice non-judgment, you learn to quiet those turbulent thoughts in your mind. Practicing non-judgment means that you practice not seeing things as either good or bad, and you stop needing to assign blame. Once you begin to practice non-judgment, you will start to begin to find non-judgment easier. So start small. Start by asking yourself to not judge anything, especially yourself, for 1 hour. And be easy with yourself on this exercise. Remember that this type of practice takes focus, and focus only improves with practice. And what about practicing discipline? By discipline, I mean you should actively study a discipline, because all disciplines improve your focus. So pick a discipline that you are passionate about. Dance, martial arts, athletics, yoga, music, science, gardening, writing, philosophy, sculpting, painting. There are so many disciplines to choose from. So pick a discipline that you're passionate about and then spend some time mastering it. And finally, what about practicing listening? By practicing listening, I mean that you should actually try to improve your listening skills. Whenever you practice listening, you build your ability to focus and you make yourself the most popular person in town. 2 very good reasons to practice listening. In my experience, people do not listen very well. A lot of people mistake hearing for listening, and then they wonder why people accuse them of not understanding. Depending on the circumstances, people will often ignore what they hear, or pretend to be listening, or listen selectively, as most of us do whenever we disagree with someone. But even when people do listen actively, they still tend to listen autobiographically, meaning they try to advise, evaluate, probe, and explain someone else's thoughts based upon their own experiences. Autobiographical listening occurs whenever we listen to people while still focused on what we think. If we want to listen effectively, we need to consciously switch our focus towards discovering what other people think. After all, shouldn't listening to you help me to discover what you think, rather than help me to decide what I think of you? Shouldn't listening to you open my mind to your thoughts, rather than determine whether or not I agree with your thoughts? Shouldn't listening to you help me to understand you, rather than help me to advise you? Very few people have developed a knack for listening well. Few people can really focus on what you're trying to communicate. Instead, they focus on how your words affect them. Few people can really listen to your intentions, especially if they disagree with you or are bored by you. Even fewer people can actually incorporate your definitions into their understanding. Effective listening is extremely rare and very precious. We will explore all the tools and principles of effective listening later in Rule 12. For now, just concentrate on exercising the quality of your focus. Practice listening to people without advising, questioning, probing, evaluating, explaining, defending, interrupting, or judging. Just listen to them. Whenever you catch yourself considering what you think, gently pull your attention back to understand what they think. Focus your attention on understanding what's going on inside the head and heart of another human being. Obviously, you don't have to do this every second of the week, but do take some time to practice exercising your listening skills. The better you get at listening, the better your relationships will become. The better you get at listening, the better your focus will become. 2 very nice benefits for the price of 1. So now you have 5 tools that can help you exercise your attention span: meditation, silence, non-judgment, discipline, and listening. Pick your favorites and then try to practice at least one of them daily. And the final tool for improving your focus, last but not least, practice controlling your negative emotions and stimulating your positive emotions. Controlling an emotion is a 3-step process. First, you simply learn to notice your emotions. Second, you decide what emotions you do want to control. Third, you consciously change your thoughts whenever you notice any emotions that you no longer want. the power of focus will take care of the rest. For example, the next time you find yourself getting all flustered and angry and in danger of blowing a gasket, you might try multiplying complex numbers in your mind. For example, 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 4 is 16, 16 times 16 is, now wait a minute, don't get a pencil, do it in your head. 6 and 6, that's 36, carry the 3, 6 and 3, that's 9, 96, there's a 0, bring down the 16, add them all up. It should be 256. Your brain will find it impossible to be emotional and analytical at the same time, and you will find your anger drain away. Don't like math? So try naming all 7 dwarfs, or all 12 of Santa's reindeer. Or you could also try listing all 50 states in alphabetical order, or my favorite, thinking up alphabetical lists of a chosen category. Take countries. It might be Albania, Bermuda, Canada, Denmark, Ethiopia, France, Germany. You get the picture. Once you begin to feel logical again, you'll be able to go back to reflect upon your anger, examine what your anger was trying to communicate, pinpoint the cause of your emotional trigger, and design strategies for improving your circumstances. You can also use this technique to stimulate your more positive emotions by thinking up alphabetical lists of things that make you joyful or calm or grateful. Example would be almonds dipped in chocolate, brothers like mine, climbing a tree, dancing under the stars, everlasting friends, friends who give me joy, games. Again, you get the idea. You don't have to rush on this. Just have fun thinking these ideas up until you begin to feel more balanced. Incidentally, if you practice and rehearse these techniques before you become emotional, you will be much more likely to resort to them once you get emotional. So practice controlling your emotions before your emotions get you into trouble. So now you have 5 tools that can actually help you improve your focus: imagining the future you want, noticing your distractions, understanding how you process sensory data, exercising your attention span daily using either meditation or silence or non-judgment or disciplines or listening, and finally controlling your negative emotions. Use these tools and you'll be able to watch your focus grow. You should also consider picking up our companion book, A River Worth Riding. It's on our website, and it will help you to maintain your focus. So what's the bottom line on focus? William James once wrote, "The greatest day in your life and mine is the day we take total responsibility for our attitudes. That is the day we truly grow up." Your attitude is the result of your focus. Do you want more fear in your life? Then focus on what you fear. Do you want more emptiness in your life? Then spend all your time reminding yourself how empty you are. Do you want to feel helpless? Then focus your thoughts on everything that you're helpless to change. Whatever you focus upon, you'll find. Do you want more gratitude? Then notice what makes you grateful. Do you want everyone to seem wonderful? Then pay attention to what makes people wonderful. Do you want a sense of joy in your life? Then cultivate what brings you joy. Take a trek through the woods. Play with some kids. Lose yourself in a book. Sail down a river. The power of focus says that whatever you focus your attention upon will grow and expand in your consciousness until it becomes your reality and affects your behavior. So spend more time focused on what you want, and you'll start seeing more of what you want. Change your focus, and you will change how you experience the river. Until next time, have a worthwhile ride. To learn more about Navigating Life's online video courses, please visit the following website. Once there, you will find links to the paperback, hardback, and digital versions of this course's companion book, A River Worth Riding, 14 Rules for Navigating Life. You will also find links to our Ask the Navigator blog, our video discussion groups and schedule, our mailing list, and much more. If you'd like to contact Navigating Life directly, you can email us at dearnavigator@gmail.com. Until our next lesson, may you have a worthwhile ride.